Hi, folks. Let's talk about the absolute comedy show that is America in 2025, where victimhood is currency, logic is offensive, and somehow running from fake racism gets you a face-to-face encounter with a very real lizard the size of a toddler. We're living in a time when the loudest voices claim oppression from air-conditioned apartments while booking flights across the globe to prove just how unlivable the West is, only to crawl back whining about sand, spiders, and the scandal of no snack aisles. Today's episode is a front row seat to the collapse of the woke fantasy, a safari through delusion, entitlement, and the kind of contradictions you only get when feelings are more sacred than facts. So buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride through the land of privilege pretending to be pain, starting with this woman who moved from America to Africa to escape white Americans only to immediately regret it.
But y'all, I'd rather go back to America and deal with the racism in America before I sit here in Africa and deal with the bullshit bribery, the bullshit fraud, the bullshit scams, the bullshit too expensive, the bullshit not having no snacks, the bullshit not having no food, the bullshit electricity, the bullshit hot water, the bullshit, what's that shit called? That be coming down. The bullshit animals, it's scorpions outside the house, it's big ass spiders, it's big ass lizards, colorful lizards you ain't never seen before, all in the fucking room with you, sleeping with you, all the bullshit people trying to scam you when you go outside thinking you rich, so they trying to get more money off of you. I'm really trying to wrap my head around this shit. I'm really trying to wrap my head around how are Americans coming to Africa and being happy. Please comment down below, because for me, I'm ready to go. And I always used to say, if it's up to me, it will be, and I'm going to go out to Africa and make shit happen. No, I don't want to. I want to take my businesses back to America. I want to open up shop back in America, open up my dentist office, and all the stuff that I was going to do out here in America. Steady electricity, and the only time our electricity get cut off is when we don't pay the bill. And we got it so good now, we got prepaid electricity, so if we forget to pay the bill, we put some money on that prepaid thing and it comes right back on in 2 minutes. In less than 2 minutes. This shit right here didn't come on for 14 hours yesterday. I can't deal. I love the people. Don't get me wrong, when I'm outside, I'm having fun. I love the people, but when I come back to reality, when you come back home is where the heart is, right? When you come back home, you're supposed to feel comfortable, you're supposed to be happy. I'm not happy. To live in a house where you look outside and all you see is turkeys and ducks and chickens and sheep and old malnourished cows.
Well, who could have seen that one coming? A woman uproots her life to flee the supposed tyranny of America, only to get blindsided by the far more terrifying evils of no snacks, aggressive lizards, and inconvenient electricity. What we're watching isn't just a personal meltdown, it's a cultural case study. It's what happens when decades of grievance politics meets the real world, and the real world doesn't care about your hashtags. Now, to be clear, this story isn't about Ghana. It's not even really about racism. It's about a worldview that has been carefully manufactured by activists, academics, and media elites, a worldview that teaches people that America is uniquely evil, systematically oppressive, and irredeemably racist. It's a narrative that flattens all complexity and insists that any hardship faced by a minority in the West must be a direct result of white supremacy. And when you pump that message into the culture long enough, this is what you get. People so thoroughly convinced of their own victimhood that they genuinely believe moving to a developing country will be a relief. And then, as always, reality shows up with bugs and bribes and 14-hour blackouts. Turns out American oppression looks a lot more like fast food, air conditioning, and reliable dental care. Who could have known? Now, this is what happens when ideology replaces gratitude. We've raised a generation to believe they're freedom fighters because they tweet about microaggressions while sipping Starbucks. They're told their suffering is historic, their tragedy sacred, and their country a living hell. But the second they're dropped into a place without Uber Eats and central air, the tune changes. Suddenly, the systemic racism they claim to be fleeing doesn't seem to exist at all. And here's the real kicker. None of this is framed as a learning experience. She doesn't step back and say, maybe I misunderstood just how good we have it. No, the blame just shifts. It goes from America is racist to Africa is corrupt. There's no self-awareness, no questioning of the ideology that led her to this point, just a fresh set of complaints. This is the hallmark of a culture where victimhood is identity and introspection is optional. The left has spent years insisting that America is a land of suffering and injustice, but when people try to live outside of it, what they often find isn't liberation, it's disillusionment. Because for all of its flaws, the United States still offers freedoms, conveniences, and opportunities that much of the world dreams of. It's why it's the greatest nation in the world. And yet the left, its cultural and academic institutions have taught millions to hate it, to see it as a source of pain rather than prosperity. This woman's journey is the punchline to a much bigger joke, one the left doesn't want you to laugh at. It's the sound of a false narrative collapsing under its own weight. It's snackless safari syndrome, a condition that only develops when someone with too much privilege decides to cosplay as the oppressed. But here's the thing, stories like this matter because they reveal the limits of the lie. They show what happens when bad ideas get tested in the real world, and eventually reality always wins. And for our next clip, we're moving on to somebody who escaped Africa for America and isn't moving back anytime soon. I'm talking about Democrat Representative Ilhan Omar.
If they thought the first 100 days of chaos would break us, they were wrong. Because across this country, millions of us are standing up for our human rights and our democracy. Judges are fighting back to block these unconstitutional executive orders. Here in Congress, we are fighting back every single day. We are fighting to protect immigrant families from mass detention and deportation. We are fighting to prevent horrific cuts to Medicaid, SNAP, and Social Security. It won't be easy, but we must continue to organize, to speak out, and to build a future that reflects our highest ideals.
If you thought the first 100 days of chaos would break us, Ilhan Omar says, they were wrong. But who exactly is they? And more importantly, who is us? Because if you listen closely, us no longer seems to mean American citizens. It means anyone who shows up legally or not. That's the quiet part the left has stopped even pretending to whisper. Now, Ilhan's speech is a textbook example of how progressive rhetoric cloaks radical priorities in feel-good language about human rights and democracy, but scratch beneath the surface and it's clear what's really being fought for: amnesty, open borders, and permanent political power. When she talks about protecting immigrant families, she's not drawing a line between lawful immigrants and those who violate our borders. That distinction no longer exists in the Democrat lexicon. In fact, drawing it now is considered racist. So let's make one thing clear. No one is against immigrants. America was built on legal immigration. What people are against is being gaslit by politicians who care more about the rights of foreign nationals breaking our laws than the safety, sovereignty, and economic well-being of the citizens they swore to represent. This is the new normal in Democrat politics: prioritize illegal aliens, vilify law enforcement, and frame any attempt to uphold immigration law as fascism. They've turned basic border enforcement into a moral crime. Why? Because importing a new underclass of dependents who will reliably vote blue is a long-term strategy. It's not about compassion, it's about control. And let's talk about the bait and switch here. Omar throws in lines about fighting cuts to Social Security and SNAP as if that somehow justifies the push to overload the system with non-citizens. It's emotional misdirection. We're told we can't afford to feed our veterans, but we can bankroll healthcare and housing for people who didn't come here legally. That's not humanitarianism, it's national betrayal. And the media, of course, plays their role perfectly. They'll call this speech brave. They'll frame any opposition as hate, but they'll never ask why a sitting U.S. Congresswoman seems more focused on shielding illegal immigrants than solving the endless crisis plaguing her own constituents, from rising crime to crumbling infrastructure. They won't question the political motivations, the donor pressure, or the ideological rot that drives this behavior. So let's be clear, this moment isn't about one speech. It's about a larger cultural shift, one where borders are optional, citizenship is meaningless, and loyalty to your own country is seen as suspect. The Democrat Party has embraced a post-American ideology, and Ilhan Omar isn't the fringe anymore, she's the blueprint. So no, this isn't just bad policy. It's the deliberate erosion of national identity disguised as moral progress. And if we don't call it out now, we'll wake up in a country where citizenship is just a technicality and being American no longer means anything at all. Anyway, yesterday was the completion of Trump's first 100 days in office, and part of his celebration involved doing an interview with ABC, which didn't really go the way NBC thought it was going to go.
He wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute
Well, wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
Yeah, that was Photoshopped. So let me
That was Photoshopped. Terry, you can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. I picked you, Terry. But you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture. We'll
and you think it was Photoshopped? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine, sir.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS, as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's fake news.
When he was photographed in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They weren't
Take a look
there,
at the
but
photograph.
they're there now, right?
No,
but
they're in
now.
your picture.
Terry.
Ukraine, sir.
He's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
We'll take a look at that.
You do such a disservice.
We'll take a look at that,
Why don't
sir.
you just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something else?
It's contested.
Now, what we just heard wasn't just an argument about tattoos. It was a microcosm of the broader fight over who controls the narrative in America. You've got Trump speaking in blunt terms about the reality of gang violence and the presence of MS-13 among illegal immigrants. And then you've got Terry Moran, appropriate name, a legacy media journalist, instantly dismissing it as photoshopped with zero curiosity, zero skepticism, and maximum condescension. Now, this is what the press does now. They don't investigate, they don't verify, they interrupt, they deflect, and they declare. The idea that a migrant could be tied to MS-13 isn't shocking to anyone paying attention. The FBI has long documented the gang's activities in the U.S., especially along the southern border. But when Trump says it, it must be fake. The reflex is automatic. Deny first, fact check later, if at all, honestly. And here's the twist. Even Moran admits the tattoos could be interpreted that way, yet still calls it fake news. That's the game. Cast just enough doubt to protect the preferred narrative, not enough to spark actual debate. It's a rhetorical sleight of hand dressed up as journalism. This whole exchange reveals just how the left and their allies in the media have trained the public to distrust certain facts, not all facts, just the ones that threaten their worldview. A gang tattoo must be edited. A migrant commits a violent crime. That's just a right-wing talking point. A drug cartel moves fentanyl across the border. Well, let's not politicize it. The point is always to minimize, downplay, or deflect, especially if it challenges the left's open border, sanctuary state agenda. But Americans aren't stupid. They see the crime spikes. They see the fentanyl deaths. They see neighborhoods changing and law enforcement stretched thin. And when Trump boldly states what they already suspect, whether about MS-13, border security, or the political theater of the media, they listen. Not because he's polished, but because he's unfiltered. And in an age of spin, unfiltered sounds like truth. And look, overall, the media's meltdown over Trump's tattoo claim isn't even about tattoos. It's purely about control. They're terrified of losing their monopoly on reality. Because once people stop letting them define what's true, the whole narrative collapses. So what we're left with is a sitting president pointing out gang affiliations on a criminal alien's hands and a journalist desperately insisting your eyes are lying. That's not news, that's propaganda maintenance. And every time it happens, more people wake up to just how fake the gatekeepers really are.
Very good defense, hopefully a great defense secretary, but he'll be a very good defense secretary.
You have 100% confidence in
I don't
Pete
have
Hegseth.
100% confidence in anything. Okay, anything. Do I have 100%? It's a stupid question. Look,
It's a pretty important position.
No. You don't have 100%. Only a liar would say I have 100% confidence. I don't have 100% confidence that we're going to finish this interview.
When President Trump says he doesn't have 100% confidence in anything, not even finishing the interview, you can hear the media gasp from the cheap seats. Terry Moran thought he had a gotcha moment, but instead he got steamrolled by a line that sums up why Trump resonates with so many Americans, because he's honest about uncertainty in a world obsessed with fake certainty. Now, the question itself was framed to trap Trump Trump into either blindly affirming loyalty to Pete Hegseth, who the media despises, or appearing unsure and undecisive. But instead of playing the game, Trump calls it out. He refuses the premise, do I have 100% confidence in anything? It's a rhetorical checkmate. And it exposes the media's biggest bluff, their addiction to absolute narratives in a world full of gray areas. Now, I think it goes without saying that this moment isn't even about Hegseth. It's about how the press frames everything as a loyalty test, especially when it comes to Trump. They don't want the truth. They want gotchas. But what they don't realize is that this style of questioning no longer works, not just because Trump is a seasoned brawler, but because the country has changed. We've been through too much to pretend anyone has 100% faith in our institutions, especially after the past few years of blatant lies, gaslighting, and cover-ups, from Russiagate to lockdown theater to Hunter Biden's laptop suddenly becoming real after it didn't meet their standards. The left spent decades building a culture around the illusion of moral and institutional certainty. The science is settled. Trust the experts. Believe the media. But what do they do when the illusion breaks down? When the experts lie, when the media covers up, and the institutions collapse under their own hypocrisy? They panic. They default to condescending questions designed to bait someone into making a mistake, then act shocked when someone like Trump throws it right back at him. And this is why they hate him. Not because he lies, plenty of politicians lie, but because he refuses to bow to their script. When he says he doesn't have 100% confidence in anything, it's not cynicism, it's realism. It's a message that resonates with millions of Americans who've been burned by broken promises and failed leadership for years. So no, this isn't a gaffe of any sort, not even close. It was a cultural diagnosis. It reminded people that certainty doesn't come from smug journalists or sanitized talking points. It comes from confronting reality head on. The media doesn't want that kind of leader, but the American people clearly do.
Thank you. Do you think the reputation of the United States has gone down under your presidency?
No, I think it's gone way up, and I think we're a respected country again. We were laughed at all over the world. We had a president that couldn't walk up a flight of stairs, couldn't walk down a flight of stairs, couldn't walk across a stage without falling. We had a president that was grossly incompetent. You knew it, I knew it, and everybody knew it, but you guys didn't want to write it because you're fake news.
All right. Thank you.
And by the way, ABC is one of the worst. I have to be honest with you.
Thank you.
Now that is what we call a moment of clarity. Trump didn't lose it on ABC as the shrieking mainstream media is trying to portray. He exposed the rot again, because in 2025, the only people pretending Joe Biden was ever competent are the same corporate media figures who spent 4 years running interference for his failures. And now that the truth is undeniable, they're scrambling to rewrite the story they refuse to report in real time. And let's be honest, Biden was never the sharpest tool in the shed, but toward the end, he couldn't even find the shed. The stumbles, the slurred speeches, the blank stares, it was all right there, right in front of us, streaming on live TV for us to watch. Obvious, painful, and yet ABC, CNN, the Washington Post, all of them, they all gaslit the public into believing criticism was just right-wing disinformation. It wasn't journalism, it was public relations for a failing regime. So when Trump calls them out, we had a president that was grossly incompetent, he says. You knew it, I knew it, everybody knew it. He's not being rude. He's being honest. He's doing the job the press refused to do for 4 years. And ABC, of course, they're one of the worst. He's not wrong about that. They were more committed to fact-checking Trump's Diet Coke intake than investigating the collapse of our southern border or the fentanyl crisis killing tens of thousands. That's not bias. That's journalistic malpractice. What this moment really reveals is how fragile the left's media empire has become. Their credibility is in free fall, not just because of Biden, but because of how obviously they colluded to cover for him. And the American people are done pretending not to notice. The media's job is to inform the public, not protect the regime. But when they spent more time defending Biden's ice cream choices than his policies, they made their priorities clear. Narrative over truth. And Trump understands that. That's why he doesn't dance around it. He says what everyone else is thinking, often with a flamethrower instead of a scalpel, but the point lands. And it lands because it's true. This isn't just a dunk on ABC. It's a takedown of the entire media class that thought they could manipulate reality without consequences. In 2020, they told you Biden was the adult in the room. In 23, they said Kamala Harris was ready to lead. In 24, they watched both crash and burn. And in 25, they're still asking Trump if he's the problem. That's not journalism. That's an unyielding faith that you have absolute power over the American consciousness and you can make it go whichever direction you want. And that's why Trump's swipe at ABC wasn't just a zinger, it was a reckoning. The era of blind media control is over. The American people are wide awake, and no amount of staged questions or rehearsed outrage is gonna put them back to sleep. So ask yourself, how much of what you believe about this country was shaped by people who've proven they'll lie to your face and call it journalism? How many opinions were handed to you, not earned through thought, but delivered through headlines, repetition, and curated outrage? We're living in a time where truth isn't just buried, it's rewritten in real time by institutions that expect your obedience, not your discernment. But what happens when more people start asking questions, start seeing the patterns, start pulling back the curtain, the cracks start showing? The narrative managers are losing control, and maybe the power now lies not in the microphone, but in the refusal to believe it without question. You tell me what you think in the comments down below. Have a terrific day. Peace.